Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something really special. It's a 1964 Q&A with Neville Goddard, and he talks about this incredibly pivotal, almost jarring moment with his teacher Abdullah.
Yeah, it's quite a story.
It really is, and it's not just like an interesting anecdote. We're going deep into how imagination, how belief can actually radically shape your reality. It really challenges how we think about getting what we want.
Exactly. Our mission here really is
Yeah.
to unpack the lessons from Abdullah's teaching style, which was, let's be honest, pretty unconventional, often blunt.
Very blunt.
But think of this as maybe a shortcut, a way to grasp these ideas of deliberate creation through a really vivid, real-world example. It might just shift how you approach, well, everything.
Okay, so to really get why Abdullah's teaching was so radical, we need to paint a picture first. Think about New York City, 1933.
Like the Great Depression.
Exactly. It wasn't just news headlines, it was grim reality. Goddard talks about millions unemployed, people sleeping, get this, 3 and 4 deep in subway tunnels or the tunnels into department stores like Gimbals.
Wow.
Yeah, with the mayor's permission, because there was just nowhere else. Long lines for coffee, for bread. It was just the norm. And remember, the U.S. population was much smaller then, maybe 130 million, compared to like 190 million later. So the scale of unemployment was just huge.
Unimaginable today, really.
And Neville Goddard himself, well, he was a dancer.
Right, not exactly a booming industry then.
Not at all. In a city where people couldn't even afford food, Broadway was basically dead. He says maybe 5 shows running, but on paper, not the usual 50 or 60. So yeah, no job, no money, living in a basement on 75th Street. Desperation sounds about right.
It absolutely was. And here's where it gets interesting, the contrast. Because his teacher, Abdullah, he lived just a few blocks away, 72nd Street,
Okay.
in a very lovely home, as Neville put it. And this house was actually owned by the Morgenthau family.
The Treasury Secretary's family.
Henry Morgenthau Jr.'s father. So Abdullah's living in comfort, but he's about to completely challenge Neville's reality, even with all this hardship going on around them.
That's quite a setup. So Neville in this basement has this just overwhelming urge, this hungry desire, he called it,
The haunting desire.
to go home to Barbados. He'd been away, what, almost 12 years? Since 1922. And suddenly he just has to go back. But there's one massive problem.
Or lack thereof.
Exactly. Totally broke. So it's late October. He goes to Abdullah with this deep yearning, this problem. And Abdullah's response.
Instant. And, well, audacious is a good word for it.
He just says, "You are in Barbados."
Ooh, just like that. And you can imagine Neville's reaction inside. He actually thought him insane.
I mean, yeah.
Because this wasn't just, visualized nicely. This was Abdullah's core thing. Yeah. A radical assumption. He was telling Neville, demanding really, that he wasn't going to be in Barbados. He was in Barbados. Right now.
Collapsing the time, collapsing the space.
Exactly. Bypassing all the logical hows. You just be it. Now.
And Abdullah didn't just leave it there, did he? He gave specifics.
Oh, yeah. Very precise instructions. Neville had to, vividly imagine being there. See America from Barbados, smell the air, the tropical smells, see the houses, the small Barbadian homes, and the key thing, simply sleep this night in Barbados.
But Neville thought it was stupid. He's standing there on 72nd Street, skyscrapers all around, totally different from Barbados with its, narrow streets, no sidewalks.
Right, the physical reality was screaming the opposite.
Yet he tried it that night. He assumed he was in his mother's house in Barbados. He really tried to feel it, see America 2,000 miles north.
So he did the work, the seemingly absurd thing.
He did. And then a week goes by, November starts, and nothing.
Zip. Nada.
Not a thing happened. So naturally, Neville goes back to Abdullah, probably expecting, some advice, encouragement, an update.
You'd think so. But Abdullah's reaction, this is maybe the most important part of the lesson.
What happened?
He wouldn't even discuss it. Turned his back, walked into his library, slammed the door.
Slammed the door.
Yep. Neville tried 3 times, apparently. And Abdullah was just firm, almost insolent, Neville said. His reasoning. How could he discuss with me how I am going to Barbados when I'm already in Barbados?
Wow.
He basically said, if you're truly faithful to your assumption, talking about the how is pointless. You're already there. Discussing how you'll get there just reinforces that you aren't there.
So the refusal, the slamming door, wasn't just rudeness.
No. It was the teaching. It's about absolute faith in the is, not plotting the how. Abdullah showed him that once you've made that assumption, truly conceived it, there's no such thing as a little pregnancy.
Right. You're either pregnant or you're not.
Exactly. Once it's conceived, you just have to carry it. Don't interfere, don't argue with it, don't seek reassurance. That's like risking a miscarriage of the desire. He wasn't being mean, he was demanding unwavering focus.
Yeah.
Any talk about how is doubt, and doubt kills the assumption.
That idea, no such thing as a little pregnancy.
Yeah.
It's incredibly demanding, though, isn't it? Because for most of us in real life, doubts creep in. Things look impossible. Did Abdullah offer any, strategy for dealing with that doubt? Or was it just have absolute faith, period?
Well, from this story, it seems like it was pretty much the latter. Radical faith. His whole approach suggests that the feeling of doubt is the interference you need to stop.
So don't analyze the doubt, just return to the assumption.
Exactly. He wasn't about explaining doubts away. He was about obliterating them by insisting the assumed state was the only reality. Think about it. Neville felt doubt. He went back to Abdullah because of doubt. Abdullah just refused to engage with it, forcing Neville back to his original assumption. It demands a level of mental discipline we often, gloss over.
Okay, so despite Neville wrestling with this and Abdullah's firm stance, something did finally shift. Dramatically.
Right. The story takes a turn.
It's the morning of December 4th. Neville's still got no job, still no money, and the very last boat that could possibly get him to Barbados for Christmas. It sails in 2 days, December 6th. The clock is seriously ticking.
Pressure's on.
Then a letter slides under his door from his brother Victor in Barbados. The letter says, basically, the family's never all been together for Christmas. It's a big family. One brother left early for Demerara. So to make sure Neville can come home this year, Victor's enclosed a $50 draft.
$50 back then was decent money.
Yeah, for necessities, a shirt, shoes, whatever. And crucially, he says a ticket is waiting for Neville at the Furnace Withy line.
Wow. Okay, so Neville must have been ecstatic, rushing down there.
Absolutely. He rushes to the Furnace line. But, there's another little test coming, isn't there?
Always another layer with Abdullah's lessons.
Right. He gets there, and there's a catch. The ticket, it's only third class.
Not quite the triumphant return, maybe.
They tell him, look, you can use the first-class lounges and decks until St. Thomas. Maybe a first-class bunk will open up there, but maybe not.
So what did Neville do?
Well, he was just so thrilled to be going home at all. He took it, accepted the third-class ticket, then he rushes back to Abdullah, totally elated. I got the ticket, it's third class, but I'm going.
And Abdullah's reaction? I can almost guess.
Yep. Another swift correction. No congratulations, no shared joy, just who told you that you were going to Barbados? And who told you that you went to Barbados third class?
Oh, yeah.
And then you went to Barbados and you went first class, period. End of discussion.
That just perfectly encapsulates Abdullah's whole philosophy, doesn't it? It's not about settling for good enough. It's not about compromising on the assumption.
Right.
If you assumed the first-class reality, then anything less, even a partial win like a third-class ticket, is still focusing on the how and not aligning with the is you created. It's still a deviation.
And the punchline to the whole story.
The final proof.
December 6th. Neville goes to check in with his third-class ticket. The agent looks up and says, Mr. Goddard, I've got good news for you. Someone has canceled, and you're going first class.
Incredible.
He traveled first class the whole way down, spent, as he put it, 3 heavenly months in Barbados, and then returned. First class. The assumption, however crazy it seemed, fully manifested, against all logic, against all odds.
Amazing story. Truly amazing.
And that Barbados trip, it was just one piece of what Neville learned from Abdullah. He called him this old fellow who taught him so many things. There's even a funny little story.
Right.
Neville brought Abdullah back some gifts from Barbados, 2 bottles of the best brandy, some rum. A week later, he sees Abdullah, who's clearly enjoyed them. And Abdullah just asks him, say, how long do you expect those things to last?
That definitely hints at his character, doesn't it? Which, Neville admits, kind of disillusioned him at first.
How so?
Well, Neville was super strict, a vegetarian, but Abdullah, he'd apparently have like 2 or 3 big shots of rye before dinner, wash meals down with ale, finish with a huge big bowl of ice cream.
Wow, okay. Not the typical image of a spiritual guru.
Not at all. And when Neville, being so disciplined himself, asked Abdullah how he could, eat and drink like that, Abdullah's answer was profound. He said, you couldn't do it. It would poison you because you have quibbles.
Quibbles, meaning judgments, doubts.
Exactly. Abdullah was basically saying our own internal judgments, our ideas about what's good or bad, clean or unclean, those are the real poison. not the food or drink itself.
That's a radical perspective. It flips the whole idea of purity on its head.
It really does. He was teaching this deep lesson. Neville connected it to the Bible, actually, Book of Acts, Peter's vision.
The sheet coming down from heaven.
Yeah, with the unclean animals and the voice saying, "Slay and eat, for that which I have cleansed, I have cleansed." Abdullah's point was, God, or the creative power, made everything. Our judgments, our quibbles about things being inherently bad or unhealthy or off limits, that's what creates the limitation, the poison within us.
Yeah.
He was teaching, as Neville said, real Christianity, free from rigid external rules and judgments.
And Abdullah's own background was fascinating too, wasn't it?
Oh, incredibly. Born in North Africa, Jewish parents, raised in a strict Orthodox home.
Yet Neville insisted Abdullah knew more Christianity than anyone he'd ever met.
Mm-hmm. Spoke Hebrew perfectly. Rabbis apparently came to study with him.
Wow.
And Abdullah spent 5 years teaching Neville the Kabbalah, which Neville called the great mystery of how this thing is put together in these simple little letters of Hebrew. So his knowledge was deep and spanned traditions. It wasn't narrow at all.
And he didn't just teach these principles, he lived them. Even against, societal barriers. There's that story about the theater.
Right, this was before the Civil Rights Act. In New York City, black people were often segregated, forced into the balconies.
Mm-hmm.
But Abdullah, who was black, would just walk up to the box office, any theater, and demand. Neville used the word demand. 2 in the center. I don't want too far back. Not beyond the 6th row.
And he'd get them. Orchestra seats.
Every time. He even took Neville to his first opera that way, Parsifal, which Neville apparently found excruciatingly long, like 5 hours.
But the point is, Abdullah just assumed his right to be there, in the best seats, regardless of the prevailing prejudice.
Exactly. Such a powerful demonstration.
Yeah.
And Neville actually said he was grateful Abdullah wasn't a typical holy man in appearance or habits.
Why grateful?
Because it meant Abdullah wasn't bound by expectations. He could teach the raw principle, that assumption, that inner conviction is everything, without getting caught up in external appearances or societal judgments of what a spiritual person should look or act like.
Mm-hmm.
His ability to get those orchestra seats was pure manifestation, overriding external reality.
So we've covered a lot here, this incredible story. If we were to boil it down, what are the absolute core lessons from Abdullah passed through Neville that really stick?
Well, first, obviously, the sheer power of unwavering assumption. Just deciding what is true and sticking to it, feeling it real.
Yeah, that refusal to compromise on the feeling.
Right. And second, the real danger, as Abdullah saw it, of interfering with the how. Once you've assumed it, you let it unfold. Don't keep digging it up to see if it's growing.
The no little pregnancy rule.
Exactly. And maybe the third thing is that this power, this true belief, it operates beyond convention, beyond appearances, beyond perceived limitations, like prejudice or lack of money.
It seems this whole deep dive really shows how one single focused intention, if you hold it firmly enough, can just rearrange the world around you, even when things look completely impossible from the outside.
Mm-hmm. It's not about manipulating the external steps so much as embodying the internal state so completely that the external has to conform. It's asking you to be your desire, not just chase it.
So the final thought for you listening, if Abdullah was right, if you are now, whatever you truly assume yourself to be, what are the quibbles, what doubts, what judgments, what limiting beliefs might you be holding on to, maybe without even realizing it, that are stopping your own desired reality from showing up? What would it really feel like right now to just sleep in Barbados tonight?